Welcome to Betting on Success, a podcast that dives into the future of gaming with a focus on cashless technology. Hosted by Mark Morton, aka Morty. From cashless innovations to incredible career stories, this is where gaming professionals stay ahead. Betting on Success is brought to you by your friends at Marker Trax and Coin, leading the way in cashless gaming.
All right. Hi, my name is Mark Morton, and welcome to Betting on Success. One of the things I really enjoy about this opportunity is really understanding the road someone travels to get to the place they are today, and especially with guys that have very unique backgrounds. I have the pleasure of having with me today Mr. Mike Daly, COO of Marker Trax. Mike?
Great to be here, Mark.
You bet, Mike. Mike, let me ask you a question. A little bit about yourself, background, where you're from, family, that sort of stuff.
Sure. I'm from New England. I grew up on a farm in New Hampshire. My family was from Charlestown, which is Ben Affleck made it famous in the movie The Town. Yeah. So we moved into Massachusetts when I was about 8, and I lived the rest of my youth there. And then got out of there. I got an MIT scholarship from the Navy, a Navy ROTC scholarship, and
you're a terrible student. I can tell by that.
I was a punk ass kid who was too smart for my own good. So I got to MIT, and the Navy probably helped me because it turned me into an adult after that.
There you go. So you spent 8 years in the Navy, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I was a naval officer, started on a ship, and then went over to the special warfare units, and enjoyed it greatly.
So I know you don't like to talk a lot about that, but I got to understand one thing. What did you learn about yourself from that time you spent there?
I definitely learned about what it meant to be a leader and what it meant to be taking care of others, that leadership was not what they showed in a lot of military movies. I think the military gets a really bad rap on, people yelling, and you get people who do that because that's what they expect they're supposed to do. But leadership is about trusting the people you're working for you to autonomously do what they need to do. So in the boat units and the small unit teams that I was in, everybody had a job they had to do, and you had to just trust that they were doing their job because you had to be doing your own part of it. I had an executive officer, Peter Oswald. He was a SEAL. He passed away a couple years after I worked with him, but he was one of the smartest guys I knew. He was slated to be an astronaut, but he really taught me about accountability and also contingency planning, and that you always had to have a way to get the mission done. And so I think I learned a lot about being more of an adult than an individual.
And so when you spent that time there, you spent 8 years there, you kind of get groomed for your next step in your career. What made you choose gaming? That's not the typical next step, I wouldn't think, but
it's not typical. I was a little dissatisfied. I was in Utah doing some work. It was the Olympics. They needed some stuff done up there. I was supposed to go to the Pentagon from there, they had wanted me to go, even before I went to Utah, go back to MIT and get a master's they'd pay for. I had lost some faith in the political system because politicians who hadn't served in the military were now in charge of the military. It had transitioned to mostly that, and I just wasn't satisfied that the leaders really understood what they were asking of the people in the field to do. So I decided I needed to look at getting away from the military, and mostly that often meant going to a military industrial complex, going and working for a defense contractor. But I said, if I'm going to be done, I want to be done. Conveniently, an ex-girlfriend's father was an investor in the gambling industry, in the gaming space. And he said, there's a dearth of mid-level management, and it's becoming a global operation. So I know you don't want to sit behind a desk the whole time. There'd be plenty of opportunity to go out and see the world still. And so he got me an informational interview with a company called Shufflemaster. Mark Yosoloff, Dr. Mark Yosoloff.
Yes, know him well.
Spent a couple hours with me, which I was pretty impressed by, considering I was a nobody from nowhere, and here was the CEO of this company. Spent a few hours with me, and he was helpful. He said, I don't really have something for you here, I don't think, because you're more technical, and we're a table games and shuffling company, but I can introduce some people, maybe IGT. I said, great. He called me back the next day and said, it's kind of serendipitous, but might be a short-term exposure here because we have this slot division, and at Shuffle at the time, their first go at slots was doing refurb machines from IGT and putting titles on it, like Tanya Harding and some other titles that we did. But he said, look, we need to clean this division up and clean this division enough to sell it off or shut it down because it's not working out. And so I came in to do that for a short period, and it was a mess. We had engineers out of Colorado who'd never seen a casino doing slot games. I mean, I took them all to a casino, and we sat down at a bank of slots. And this is when ticket in, ticket out was just taking off. And they sat down, and the machines were all making noise, cashing out, the fake coin noises. And they said, they all make this noise. And I go, you know which ones don't make this noise, guys? Ours. So it was a lesson learned for all. But while I was doing that, Shuffle bought some patents from Sega Gaming, which I think you were at Sega at one point there.
I was at one point in time, one of many, Mike. So
they had patents for electronic tables. Wasn't a thing in gaming yet. They were in arcades, fake blackjack games, and some other things. And Sega, I guess, didn't want to get licensed and go through the gaming side of things, but Shuffle was interested in it. And so I sat in one meeting on the electronic tables, and then had to go and tell Yoseloff and then the board that they didn't realize it, but they just bought another slot product because it was all electronic games were going to be slots. And the thing they were building was going to get approved in one jurisdiction as opposed to the 200 that they had in the business plan. So next thing I knew, I was the product manager owner of that product line. And that was a lot of fun.
And then our paths crossed at Bally in the mid-2000s, right? Correct?
Correct. Yeah, I left Shuffle. I'd almost moved to Austria to become the managing director of Shuffle's European division after we bought Casinos Austria Research and Development during a patent fight. Shuffle was really good at patent fights. It's like bringing a patent to a knife fight.
Yeah, exactly.
So that didn't work out. And so I found myself, I was going back and forth to Australia and Europe because we'd picked up Rapid Roulette, which was another product that had failed in the U.S., and I'd taken it on as a product, and we were deploying it in the U.S. as another electronic table. But I was traveling a lot, and the upside had sort of not come out of that deal to go to Europe. So somebody at Bally reached out to me and said, would you like to come across? And I told the guys at Shuffle, and one of the senior guys there said, his negotiation was, you like it too much here to leave. And I said, I do like it here, but this is a business after all.
Right.
So I found myself at Bally, came in as a product manager. Again, I like getting involved in things that are new and interesting to the space. You know, things at Shuffle when I ran electronic tables, somebody who's big in the industry now told me, I can't believe you're doing that. That thing's never going to make it. And so then at Bally, it was, bringing in first widescreen slot machines. They didn't exist. Trying to convince somebody to do digital toppers and digital glass instead of physical glass using screens. The first multi-screen monitor slot machine. And, I found the best thing that I could do was, and this is something I learned along the way from somebody, Greg Colella, if you remember him from Bally.
Greg, you bet.
Super smart guy. Didn't get a lot of respect for how smart he was and knew his products, but he was super humble. And so he was never afraid to make something else, somebody else's idea to get the credit as long as it happened. And he taught me that along the way, or I absorbed that. And so it helped me do a lot of things at Bally in terms of those products. Worked with Doug Mack, who came in to run Agile manufacturing. Agile was another thing that wasn't heard of in the gaming space at the time. So I went to work for Doug Mack and ran field operations, so the 500 or so people in the field running casino service and wide area progressives and outlying refurbishment facilities. So got my hands exposed into that and how to take, we had a 32-week or something stupid like that manufacturing timeline.
I remember those too.
And we got it down to like 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And so it was really super cool to be involved with and learn from these guys who were real masters of their craft.
So you're an achiever without question.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I know. I think you are. I'm confident you are. So when you got there, I know you then moved into field service. You had multiple different jobs when you were at Bally, Tell me why. You told me earlier today, but why did you take that route?
So one of the things I saw early on dealing with C-levels and board of directors as I got exposure to them is a lot of them had not the full picture of how the business worked. A lot of them came from the financial side of things, so they understood the finance, the profit and loss, the projections, but they didn't really know how the products worked or how manufacturing happened. So I wanted to learn about the whole business. And so Gavin Isaacs had come in as the COO at the time to Bally, got to know him. He came in shortly after or before I did. I don't recall exactly which of the two, but I got some exposure, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a C-level someday of a small to mid-sized company, but I need to learn the rest of the business. So that was how he helped me get over to be underneath Doug Mack. And then I got an opportunity to move from there into biz dev after field operations and working with John Connolly and some others on, first we were doing some stuff with some financial transaction companies, and then it was exploring online, which was, again, a thing wasn't happening in the US yet. It was all in Europe, and the common sense seemed to be that it wasn't really going to take off in the US, that we were always going to be a land-based business. So what did I do? I jumped into the online and started doing remote gaming servers and bringing the Bally games to Europe and trying to get us there when, Bally was a big name here in the US, but nothing in Europe. I think Bally Germany, which had no relation, was a bigger company than Bally. So that was interesting and fun. So I did that for a couple of years with some RGSs and products for Bally. And Gavin had left and gone to be the CEO of Shuffle. And at some point I got asked if I'd be interested in going over there and setting up their online division, which again was table games online. Again, the only thing that really had been out there was blackjack and roulette. And again, the prevailing advice was, don't do this. It's a dead end. Nobody's going to do table games online. So I thought that was interesting. So went off and did that for a couple of years. Then Bally got bought, or Shuffle bought Bally. And it was awkward going back to the same boss. So I punched out and actually did my first financial tech company. Came in as a first quick CTO and then CEO within like a month after of a startup trying to bring debit cards to the slot machine. These investors had spent a bunch of money. They'd been milked for all of it. They had no product except it was smoke and mirrors, but they still believed in it. So they brought me in to clean up the company and see if we could bring it to market. Well, we focused on table games first because that's where regulations actually allowed it.
You're talking about Play On, correct?
I'm talking about Play On. The company's name was Automated Cash Systems or Cashless Systems, depending on when you found the name. But Play On was a product where what we deployed was you could take a handheld device like they now use in restaurants to pay your bill. They were using them all over Europe at the time, but not in the US. But you could bring it to the card table. It would be sitting there. So instead of having to get up and go to the ATM, lose that time at the table, casino lose that time of the player, you put the device there, you swipe your debit card, dealer hands you out chips. We got it deployed into California Tribal. We got it deployed in some other places, and it looked really interesting. Turned out the major investor wasn't licensable.
Yeah.
And
I've lived that.
That's not the
before.
best. And so said, okay, it happens. You got to sell your shares. He sold his shares, supposedly, to our chairman. And then I got told that he'd probably still be involved. And after explaining to him that this didn't work out well for companies like Cadillac Jack or some of those others that had some behind-the-scenes things going on, that I couldn't be involved if that was going to be the case. So went on to the next thing.
Which was GAN?
Which was GAN.
Okay.
GAN was another thing that wasn't being done yet. GAN was a European platform provider for online gaming. They were looking at the U.S. as an opportunity. At that point, only New Jersey had online, and it was just casino. So the CEO said, I want to do social casino. We don't have a platform that does it yet, but we're going to bring it into the U.S., and we're going to sell it to the casinos who want to go online, and we're going to write the contract such that if real money gaming happens, then they have to use us for the first number of years for real money. So we went from one casino in the U.S. when I started, I think, to about 15 casino groups with social casino. Some of the big state operators, etc., were using our product, and it was a heavy lift because it didn't really do the money that somebody might hope, but it got audience attention.
So when you think about online gaming, real money online gaming, there's a fear that it's going to, negatively impact the traditional land-based casinos. Do you feel that way?
I think this is a fallacy. I think there are some level maybe of cannibalization, but that's such a small level. So think of it, I think of online gaming as in two ways. So like you have social casino.
Right.
And social casino has always been to me sort of like penny slots. So penny slots, when they came out, people were like, oh, they're just going to play those and we're going to lose money by having them on our floor. But I think studies quickly showed that a penny slot and a nickel slot and a quarter slot all had about the same hold because people would bet more lines. And so we made this pennies basically take 250 bets instead of 10 bets on a quarter machine. So social casino makes you feel like you're betting less, but it's still betting. But it's capturing people who aren't coming into the casino. They don't view themselves as casino players. They view themselves as online app players. So that's really not drawing from it. And then real money gaming, I think real money gaming can be both collaborative or it can be corrosive to the land-based if done improperly. We're seeing a growth in New Jersey of online. The New Jersey casinos land-based have struggled for quite some time. They're still holding on. There are still more than I would have projected would be able to maintain given the number of states opening land-based casinos. I think part of that is being bolstered by the online and the fact that there is more attention to casino gaming. And yeah, I get a taste at home from my little slot on my one view screen on my iPad or my phone. But if I really want an experience to know where my money has value like nothing else, I go to a casino. I go and play on a multi-screen machine that you can't do anywhere else. It's like, why do we still go to the movie theaters? I love to go to the movies. I have a movie theater at home, embarrassingly enough, that I built during COVID because I couldn't go to the movie theaters. But going to the movie theater is an experience. It's going in and being around others and watching and getting the same individual experience, but together. And that's a slot machine. That's a casino. You're playing, you get to celebrate your wins with everybody else, but you don't have to talk about the rest of it.
Yeah, I think about that very similar to when gaming expanded across the U.S. Everybody felt it was going to kill Vegas, right? But all it did was expanded the people that liked the game.
Yeah.
So I think it's similar to that. You touched a minute ago on cashless, which PlayOn I thought was a great product and is a great product.
Light and Wonder owns it now.
They do own it now, but so when it comes to cashless, why do you think it's been so difficult to adopt and expand in that area?
So a couple of fronts. Regulations make it tough. Regulations are there, and I'm a big believer in regulations because they protect this industry from killing the golden goose in some ways, from going too fast, from making sure it feels and is safe for the players. So regulations are always slow to catch up with technology. I mean, you remember when we were using CD-ROMs and they were just approving CD-ROMs and they were already being obsolesced in the music industry. So there's that. And then it is just traditional play. I feel safe. I go in with my money. I'm at the table. It's mine. The casino can't touch my credit card or my debit card. They're not touching my bank. I feel safer probably when there's no direct linking. So we have to overcome that and make them feel confident that they can still be in control even though they have more access. And I think that's the world in general. Debit cards. People use cash. Debit cards was a transition, and it took a while for those that even remember such things because you have to feel confident. I'm safe using this card. They're not going to just empty my bank because I touched or I gave them my card and used that instead of cash. So I think cashless is part of that challenge. And technology is tough. Because of those regulations, a lot of the gaming tech is not really modern tech. No offense, but especially as you get to the land-based casinos, because they have some of even the older systems that you can't just dump a system for a casino after 20 years. You have to keep supporting it. And so the tech gets built on more and more layers, and that technology is really hard to adapt to some of the things that we do with modern tech.
And so you leave GAN, and now you go to a company called...
Yeah, good luck with that.
I know. That's what
It's
I'm letting
Swedish.
you do it. Yes.
So I went to a company called Catena Media, which is it's an affiliation company. Again, nothing that was being done in the U.S. at that point. These guys were in Europe, Swedish-based, or Swedish, traded on the Swedish NASDAQ, based in Malta, a small island off of Italy. And they were doing affiliation, which is lead generation, bringing in players to online casinos or online sports books. Now, when they brought me on, they just acquired 2 companies that were focused on New Jersey. Chris Grove, if you know him.
I do.
One of his companies was one of our acquisitions. And so I was brought in to basically take over from these founders and build a company for the U.S. It was doing 5 or 6 million U.S. at the time in driving players to the New Jersey casinos, which it's a darn good business. You know, we'd get paid $800 to $1,200 for delivering a player that made a deposit with an online casino in New Jersey. And so we were doing that. Meanwhile, PASBA happens, and the world starts to open up in the U.S. for online sports and casino. And so we drove this affiliation company. We built websites. We had The Lines, Legal Sports Report, Bonus.com, a series of websites for my first time working with journalists, writing about sports, which, you know, I'm probably the wrong guy to run a sports company in some ways. I'm not I don't watch a ton of sports and I don't follow the stats, but everybody who worked for me pretty much did. So we drove this business, 60 plus websites, delivering hundreds of thousands of players a quarter, millions of viewers per week hitting our sites. And so then we'd send them on to a DraftKings or a FanDuel or a BetMGM, etc. So it was interesting. Did that for a couple of years. Well, the U.S. business grew really well. What I learned while I was there is the European company, which was the foundation of us, was crumbling. It had been essentially built on a pump and dump strategy by a guy who'd been the chairman and the major investor, interim chairman, major investor, and so he had just bought a bunch of things that were immediately accretive, but only for a short term. And then he dumped his stock about the time I had joined. So our company, the CEO I worked for, didn't know what to do, and sort of I think he just waited to see if it was going to improve. And the board the same. By the time I had been there 3 years, they decided they needed a new philosophy. So they opened up a search. And I went to my chairman and then to the board, and I said, look, I'm not living in Malta. I will work European hours from the U.S., but we all know what needs to happen. We had massive amounts of debt that had to get reduced, which meant we had to sell off parts of the company to keep the rest of the company from going under. The U.S. business was worth a lot. We were doing 85, 90 million in annual revenues at that point at a 60 or 65% margin. Wow. It was healthy business, but the rest of the company was siphoning off that money. So I spent the next couple of years cleaning up the company so that it could survive or go in a sale process. We opened up a strategic review. Can't go into that too much, but didn't end up closing a transaction. And I was the CEO. Again, accountability. We did a strategic review. We didn't make a sale, which the market was expecting. We went down the path then of, okay, this is what we need to do for a technology investment. It's going to be a long haul. So I said, after the Q4 of 2023 report, I'll resign. We'll get the company on the new path. I'll resign. Our chairman went after me. And now the company is slowly digging its way out of the tech problem it had after we paid off the debt problem.
So now your career takes you to another startup, Marker Trax. I'm flying the colors today, by the way.
You are. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I put the hat on for you. So what attracted you to Marker Trax?
2 things. The people and the passion that they had for this. And again, this is something that hasn't quite been done before. It's a no-brainer. Oh, digitalization of credit, expansion of credit programs in a safe way that you can give more people the ability to gamble and do it on their whim and not have to go to an ATM and not have to worry about where the fund's coming from on the weekend because I don't get paid till Monday or it doesn't deposit till then. But it's going to capture back the money. in a way that means most of the money comes back from jackpots and the like, so that people are just not dumping more. It's not going on a credit card. This isn't a credit card. It's a credit facility, and it's very different. So that was what made it very interesting. That what do the regs say about that? Well, nobody's really clear. What do the regs say about it land-based? Oh, you can do it online too. Oh, you could do it in pretty much any implementation of gaming. And then the people here, for a startup that has been down the journey of build it along the way product, which is what they usually are,
Right.
the amount of dedication and belief was still very strong. I'm often coming to the startups when it's in the second phase of okay, we got to dig out from underneath the rock, and, team motivation is a little low because we've had 4 years of grind and nothing really to show for it. This team, they've been grinding. They have some to show for it, but there's so much potential on the horizon, and everyone still sees that. Again, I've never been also in a company that, usually with a startup, you have to convince somebody that it is a problem and that you can solve it. Here, customers are basically falling over to say, I want this thing, I need this thing, how can you get me this thing? That's a pretty good problem to have.
So you've been around startups, turnarounds, new product introductions. That takes a unique individual. What traits do you have that makes that appealing to you?
So I like to win.
Yeah.
I've never viewed myself probably as competitive, but when I get on the treadmill at the workout place I go to, like this morning, if there's a 22-year-old on the treadmill, I got to win.
Right.
So there may be some of that in me. I like the technical challenge. I like the operational challenge. I like building a team. I never thought of myself as a team person or a coaching mentor when I was younger. I think I really learned that was something I really enjoy, not doing everything myself, but helping others become empowered. I think this industry, maybe a lot of industries, have a challenge where we get 3 people in leadership and they all are just the people in charge and everybody else is a sort of a peon and just told to go do what to do. I like building an organization where everybody is a leader and you know what you need to do and you're trusted to go do it. And that makes organizations really fly, startups or otherwise. And I really enjoy that portion of it.
Yeah, it's funny, after doing what I did for 30 years, right? Sales for 30 years. The thing that motivated me, inspired me the most at the end, or not at the end because I'm still here, but at the end was not my success, but my team's success. And I think that's a unique individual. And I think the foundation of what you did initially maybe has a little bit of an impact on that, right? I mean, being part of a team in a very, high pressure situation leads you to want to rely on others and lead others. So
I definitely agree with that. I think the early parts of my career taught me things. And again, every company I've been at, it wasn't always the guy in charge or person in charge. I've learned something that I've absorbed, maybe not right away, but into my character set of things that I want to be better or do better at. And some of that was team leadership. Some of that was work hard, play hard, that you can do both. And it doesn't have to always feel like a grind when you're working. Humility and humbleness, that, it's more important to get the idea to happen than it is to take the credit for it. The culture, which it's a word I misunderstood as a kid, right. The culture really is a defining factor of a world-class company. And I think that's what Marker Trax has, is a world-class culture that the company is building the product to catch up with.
Is there an experience over the last 20 years that impacted you more than something else? I mean, is there something that, is a person, maybe it's a person, right? Or an individual that kind of grew you as a leader?
So it's probably much later in life because we've only been together a couple of years, 5 years. My wife is the most talented person I know.
I love that.
She describes me as a polymath, but I'd really say she's the polymath. She was in tech sales. She's now building a startup in the food tech space. She's a recorded artist. She's got a soul album, this 5'6" Italian woman who sings like no other. She won the Price is Right Showcase Showdown because she figured out a way to game the system to get on the show when she was going to it with her father. So my wife has inspired me to be more and to be more human too, because I used to be very closed off, cold, thought business needed to be less emotional. And I think business decisions need to stay relatively non-emotional, but it doesn't mean the person can't be.
Well, I'll tell you, Mike, we've only had a chance to work for a short time this time, and it's been years since
Let's
we
not
worked.
date ourselves.
I know we won't date ourselves, but I will tell you that you definitely inspire people. I saw it from the minute you walked in this office, and I want to just thank you again for being with me on the show today.
Thank you, Mark.
And Mike, it's a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and I'll see you next time.
That's a wrap for this episode of Betting on Success. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Stay tuned for more insights from gaming industry leaders. We'll see you next time.